So in the cross of Jacob, right, you got four directions: north, south, east, west. That's a cross. Jacob, the patriarch of Israel, he had four names, four aliases. He had Jacob, and that came with two names. That came with heel grabber and trickster. So Jacob, the name itself, that ties into Yaqub, and it ties into a lot of what the 5%ers follow in terms of like the creation, being like a divine scientist, one out of the Elohim council of gods that were really scientists from like a higher dimension. That goes into um, Jacob also, and then whatever the regular etymology behind that word is. But they have two definitions for it: heel grabber and trickster. Trickster is coming out of the Samael energy, so you have deception for the purpose of furthering. You have God's venom, or what you would call the hard, cold truth, the reality of life. So that's going behind the trickster archetype, because tricksters was in Jacob's bloodline. There was tricks. A lot of tricks had to be played, and deception had to be uh, done in order to spare a lot of the lives of the people at that time. You had Abraham lying to Pharaoh, saying that Sarah was his sister. Then you had Isaac doing the same thing, saying that Rebecca was his sister and not his wife. So you had deception there. Then you had deception with Jacob's mom, Rebecca, uh, setting up the whole birthright thing, where he cooks his dad's favorite pottage. And this is what goes on in with Jacob. He's dealing with the trickster archetype in his own mother. And then even later on in his life, he had to deal with the trickster in his own uncle when it came to the matter of Leah and Rachel. He was tricked by his uncle Laban, and he was cheated out of his wages. What, like, I think it was like between 7 and 10 times. So that's dealing with the trickster archetype. The heel grabber is an interesting archetype too. This one is more applicable probably even than Israel. Israel is the God wrestler, so the one who wrestles with the concept of divinity. This is the ultimate and last transmutation, like the last stage in the alchemy. You wrestle with the divine, and you do what Jacob did. He didn't wrestle and subdue the angel in the storyline. What did he do though? He held on, even though his hip was dislocated afterwards. He hung on, and that's where the third eye at Peniel is where they wrestled at, and where he was given the name of God. One translation says that the name itself was Peniel. So this is pointing to Christos, the third eye again, and pointing to the Christ archetype figure. That goes into the God wrestler Israel. But the heel grabber is interesting because you look at that like, okay, this is a bottom feeder. He's grabbing the heels of his older brother who was born first, or whatever the case. So you look at it like that, because Jacob and Esau were twins. These were the nations that was wrestling in their mother's womb. From these two people came those nations. So with the heel grabber, it was said that Jacob grabbed Esau's heel. And this is even going into birth, there was struggle. But I want to use the other definition of heel, like when you train dogs. The heel, the heel grabber. When you tell a dog to heel, this is for the dog to be still. Tell the dog heel. So when it came to Jacob's riches and his success and how he was blessed, he was a heel grabber. What he did was grab the stop button. He grabbed whatever would make him lack in resources. And you can see later on in the narrative in Jacob's life, he ended up outsmarting Laban when it came to the matter of the livestock. He was placing the livestock between reeds and breeding them different, where his uncle ended up with all of the sickly ones and Jacob ended up with all the healthy ones. So it was tricks upon tricks. and he had to use his whole cross, all his archetypes. He had to be the regular man Jacob, he had to be the God wrestler to understand control, and then he also had to be uh, a God wrestler and a heel grabber to grab the stop button. So that's the cross of Jacob.